Butterflies don't decide that they don't want to fly no more. And lions never say that they don't want to roar. So why do we deny our own light inside? Maybe we were made from stardust, so shine.
Peace and blessings, family, and welcome to Labors of Love podcast. We are here to inspire, uplift, and enlighten. Each episode, we will be hearing from Black midwives, doulas, and other traditional childbirth supporters who have dedicated their lives to being of service to Black mothers and families in all aspects of the motherhood journey. Janice, I definitely want to hear from you. I'm grateful for you being on. You also mentioned how many birth centers in Texas. Texas is huge for one, but to have 80 birth centers is still something that should be applauded. So please, let us know who you are, where you are, and we would love to hear from you.
Sure. So can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So my name is Janice. I am a certified doula. I'm under two organizations due to the insurance restrictions and requirements, so to say. So I am a Doula Training International certified doula. I'm also a CAPA certified doula to meet TRICARE requirements for insurance. Then I am a certified childbirth educator. So I do childbirth education in a class setting, and then I do it partner with our birth center in Kansas. And through Kansas, I am able to take on Blue Cross Blue Shield, what's Healthy Blue Medicaid here. I'm not sure what it's called in other states, but I take on clients through the childbirth class that way. So I am able to get paid through insurance. And so with that, I also do community health work. So I'm a credentialed community health worker. And so I do a lot of resourcing for the Missouri and Kansas side, mostly maternal health, because that's my area of expertise, so to say. And so I find places where they can get diapers, milk, housing, all the things to kind of keep their life balanced. If they have domestic violence issues, like shelters, all the things. So I kind of started with the community health worker side, but I merged into the doula side. My background is criminal justice. I had my undergrad in criminal justice. Then I went thinking I was going to work in corporate America and went to graduate school and decided to do a master's in business and leadership. But as I was going along that path, very similar to what Angelica said, I found that I was the only face in the room, token in the building, that with everything that I brought to the table, I was the one that was connecting with the communities that we were serving. Even in, I did some public defender work for a really long time. And so with that, I was always the front runner in course to talk to everyone, go to the jail, do all the things, because they were my people a lot of times. And so they knew that things, even if it was bad news, would be better coming from me. But it gets to weigh on you after a while, where you're just like, I don't want to be that person. Like, try to make me out to be that person. So I switched over into birth. At the time, I was on my fifth child. And so I had some different experiences. I had a military background, so I had a baby in a military hospital. I had some babies in regular hospitals and hospitals attached to colleges and university hospitals and all the things. But I had not had the very traumatic experiences that I was hearing about from just like my community of sisters. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. So I need to know where I can get in to help with this fight. So I went in as a community health worker. I eventually evolved into a birth doula. The intentions were to do postpartum. As Lady Holly mentioned, postpartum is very important. And so that was my goal. But I was finding a lot of the mamas coming to me and they were just wanting me to do their birth. And so they were like, we want you to do your birth, do our birth. And so my personality is very calming for some reason when I'm in that sacred birth space. And so people like really appreciate that because I'm like, I don't know what you want me to say or do. I'm just going to be here to support. And they were like, I don't know, when you're in the room, it's just so calming. So I was like, okay, I guess that's what I bring to the space. And I did a lot of like comparisons to other doulas in the area. I'm originally from Illinois. So living in Missouri has been quite the difference. But I've lived in several different states with my military background. So I've lived in California, I've lived in North Carolina, I've lived in Florida, and some other places. But all in all, I'd say Missouri has been quite different and a little bit more Southern than even living in Florida and North Carolina. Kansas, on the other side, seems to be going a little bit more into a phase of where they're really trying to push everything along when it comes to birth and maternal health. They've had extended Medicaid happen on that side of the state line. They've had breastfeeding coalitions that span throughout the state of Kansas on that side. And yet Missouri is kind of still behind the 8 ball on a lot of things, maternal health. Our hospitals here are very corporate run. So I appreciate Ms. Hodges for speaking about like approaching the hospitals here. They shut it down. They don't entertain the conversations. You're more than welcome to bring a collective or a group, and they will pair with you if you are paired with an insurance company like Blue Cross, Medicaid, or if you're bringing in United Healthcare, Medicaid. The official umbrella is our insurance companies, not Medicaid, or as we call MoHealth. It is not them. We have had meetings with them as doulas. They told us that they're about 3 years off from even thinking about paying doulas or putting us into a payment structure. We had the same conversations on the community health worker side where we don't get paid. I am also a community health worker through a nonprofit called Altruism Media, the Maya Project, and my funding is grant funded. No one seems to be able to work through the intricate difficulties in getting billing systems set up, nor are they large enough to maintain billing systems. So you have a lot of doulas who are working for collectives or coalitions that are grant-based. And so there's a number of clients you can take. We do have one in Kansas City called Uzazi Village, which is Black-led. And they have a contract with Healthy Blue because they are a doula certification organization. So with that being said, they carry that to one of our hospitals and on the Kansas side, and they work with them, but not enough to call it like a partnership. More so they refer to them if they need a doula and they'll call them. So they have built that kind of bridge there, but your average doula collectives, we are not able to get in. We are still treated like the stepchild. There are a lot of unwritten rules at our hospitals. There are hospitals on the Kansas side where they have their own format of rules that they want you to sign, basically saying that you will not speak against the doctor. We're not included in the birth teams, which I think is highly important because a lot of times the clients are telling you things that you would really like to find out more in-depth information on the doctor spectrum. But if we worked as a birth team, then it wouldn't be so hard to get that information. So the doctors pretty much are threatened. They get highly defensive against doulas here. On the Kansas side, you have your certain doctors who are okay with doulas, but they're like a diamond in the rough. So it's not the hospital setting, it's that particular doctor. So when you get that particular doctor or that particular set of nurses, your whole visit could be like magical. But if you get those doctors who are like, you know, I'm the doctor, stay in your role, stay in your place, don't talk against what I'm saying, then it's a bumpy ride, especially for the Black population that I serve. I will say a lot of their births have been traumatic for me. I've had to step back at the end of last year just because of the power struggle in the birthing space of trying to advocate and trying to give them all their options without the doctor consistently, and I'll say harassing them into inductions and cesareans. Many times the medications will lead to cesareans. So even though Missouri and Kansas will both on the spectrum say, no, we do not, our cesarean rates are going down, or we're not pushing them into cesarean, but they're pushing them into inductions, which will lead to that. So they found kind of another way of getting them to the C-section without scheduling the C-section. So advocating has been quite the role to play. I have also done some work with the nonprofits on the doula side through another organization that is a white-led organization. And I get those clients, and as Ms. Hodges mentioned again, they aren't understanding how to address these situations. So even though the clientele is coming to them because they can accept WIC and they have all the things, they kind of get a little bit more leverage in what they're getting to accept than the Black coalitions or collectives. So they're able to take on these clients that they don't understand the demographics, they don't understand the mentality, they don't understand the verbiage, they don't understand anything about the culture, but and yet and still they're in these spaces trying to advocate, and I applaud them for that. But at the same time, taking care of our own it's much different. It's a very different aspect in that space. It's a very different empowering role to play for us to be able to say, yes, you understand, we understand each other, we can relate on these levels. And so I find myself going kind of in the community-based doula work, and then I'm also on the nonprofit side. My business itself is a Blissful Beginnings Doula Services, which is a for-profit business. So on that side, I get a lot of women that are able to afford doulas. I don't take insurance personally for myself. I take it through the community-based organizations who are able to receive it. I also know that United Healthcare on the Kansas side, they have built up a third-party network where they filter through referrals for doulas on the Kansas side. But all in all, many doulas do not want to participate in these things because it is a lot of requirements to get in. You're kind of being policed now for your doula work through these insurance companies and these organizations, because they're setting rules and policies to report back to the insurance companies to get you covered for payment. So essentially you're like having to double track and put in record medical record information for them to give to the insurance company. I know from working with Blue Cross for a period of time as their community health worker, they are not allowed to ask certain questions, that now that they can get that information through the doula resources. So for me, that's a little conflicting. And I always tell even my white counterparts when they have opportunities to like speak on things, I'm like, if it's a Black family, watch yourself, like you're exploiting. Very thin line between the information that you're giving on these families to other organizations or to reporters or to different things, because that has been the thing these days, especially because now we're a hot ticket item because of the mortality, morbidity. They are taking these stories and these articles and they're highlighting things that aren't always full truths. So with that being said, I'm also part of the Mommy Bus Coalition of St. Louis. And St. Louis has been going to the Capitol here recently to talk to representatives out there to get things passed when it comes to birth centers, midwives, and doulas. We have, I won't say we, but I have sat down with the birth center. We only have one birth center in our area, and that's on the Kansas side. There are no birth centers in Missouri that have been able to be passed. They have very strict rules on what they look for in birth centers that makes it almost impossible to open one. So we have not been able to keep and maintain. You have a couple now that are going again, one on the Kansas City side of Missouri and one on the St. Louis side of Missouri, that are trying to kind of powerhouse their way in to get that built, but we still yet have not gotten a birth center. Kansas, on the other end, they had one that closed about 4 years ago. They have one left on this side of the state line of Kansas. We're on the Wichita side, going a little bit further out, they have one. So Iowa has one. I think they have one left. And they said that one is about to be closed down because rules have come into place where they're not allowing birth centers to do have transfer rights. So when patients have issues, they can't get into the hospital, OB won't sign for them. So I sat down with HRSA, with the federal government and one of the birth center owners about a month ago. And basically HRSA was like, do you not know how hard it is to rewrite a policy? So that's where we were with that. So I'd say pretty much we've tried to go all over the map of just like something that should be so simple is becoming more complicated, more difficult. It's becoming more layered. Whether or not Missouri Medicaid is like, we don't know if our structure should include certified doulas or trained doulas. We don't know what does a living wage look like to you. I mean, these questions that you had no problem building public policies and pay structures for people who work for the city. You have no problem building those payment structures, people working in Congress. But when it comes to doulas, it's so difficult to figure out where to put us in. But we're the ones doing a lot of that legwork on the outside and the inside and after the birth. So I find it very entertaining, needless to say, that it's such a struggle right now to figure out where we need to be and what needs to be done when it comes to policies. I myself am not very political. I don't do a whole lot of advocating when it comes to politics and laws and all the things. I'll sign it. They just tell me where to sign. I read it and I'm like, okay, but I don't follow like any of our politicians here on either side of the state line. I do go to advocate for doulas. I do advocate for midwives. I think having midwives, specifically CPMs, the certified professional midwives, are very important. My CNMs, my certified nursing midwives, I call them medical midwives, who work in the hospitals. Sometimes they can be a little biased depending on what that hospital policy looks like. So in all, it's very, very frustrating. It's very hard to navigate for the average birthing person, because they hear midwife and they think it's the same across the board. And so, you know, they want them to think that. They don't try to correct that either. And they know that once they get in that setting of the hospital, they're going to be pushed into certain rules. Again, our hospitals, we have some main hospitals. It's pretty much HCA that covers a lot of the hospitals. On the Missouri side here, we recently had HCA, which is one of the main hospitals. A lot of those hospitals are near urban communities. They cut ties with Blue Cross. So all of us who had Blue Cross insurance were no longer allowed those hospitals because they were out of network. So they lost a lot of things, a lot of easy access to a hospital in their communities, which again, it's that whole power struggle thing of, you know, not meeting the needs of what's going on and being compassionate, in other words, to that situation. So a lot of those people had to switch over to healthcare. So then they had to find different doctors. So if they had been going to a doctor for their pregnancy, now they could no longer birth with that doctor. So they were having to scramble, find different doctors. Doctors are backlogged here. So they're seeing birthing clients 2 and 3 months out from the time they first call. So if a client calls at like, oh, their 28th week or 30th week, they're like, I just got to take what I can get because I won't be able to get into this doctor that I want at a decent amount of time before my baby is born. So we have those things and those issues going on. They're not really addressing things, but the doctors, so to say, but on an umbrella scale, they've bandaged a lot of things. So you have a lot of things in place. They're just not being enacted upon. So you can put these things in place, but in my opinion, if you have no one to really go in and oversee what's going on, we can put all the things in place and say, do this, do that, do this. But the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, they're going to do what they want to do because they have no overseer. No one is coming in, checking them and saying, hey, you know, why did this client have a C-section? What was the cause of that? What does your record say? They're feeling like they have a God complex out here. They don't have to answer anybody. They're the doctors. They said it needed to be done. So I'm fully for things being changed and put in place. But I think in somewhere in there, I don't know if that's something that could be put into a bill, that they need to have outside neutral advocates to be in to make sure that this is happening and they're not bandaging what the situation is to make it look good. There's a lot of money sitting on the table right now with the insurance companies. There was that huge grant that came out post-COVID, right after COVID, and it was meant to trickle down for maternal health for all of those helping. But of course, those larger corporations like Blue Cross, United Healthcare, they sucked up those funds, and now they're putting people in place that seem like they're doing something. They're putting community health workers in place. I was a community health worker for Blue Cross for a short amount of time. And I say a short amount of time because then I was given the decision of you could work for us and stop being a doula, or you could be a doula and you could do it outside of here, or just not take paid clients, which was not an option. When I came to the table and we had the interview process, it was all good. As soon as there was work being done, I had my first young Black mom, things were going awry. I was putting my foot down about the issues that were going on with her. Now I had to choose. So it's those things, but to the outside world looking in, they're like, Blue Cross has brought on community health workers, helping the community. But at the same time, you still have those same people sitting around the table who are still saying no, no, and no. So at the end of the day, it's in place. It's not effective. It's not going to be effective because the right people aren't around the table. And then you have your United Healthcare, which has got all the commercials going, and they're like, we're doing all this for the families. I called United Healthcare to even get anything done, like I was a client, and they sent me through so many rings that I was like, if I had a client that was in a situation, because I deal with a lot of clients who don't have the time to sit on the phone for an hour. They're at work. They're working till the baby comes because they need that income. So I'm thinking, I had the time to sit and do this. They don't. And you put me through, call this person, take this number, go on here, then go on the website, then add this, then join the rewards for. So you're pretty much you're not making it applicable to us, and you're not making it easy. And so it's very similar to the process of getting like food stamps and all the things, which they finally streamlined and put it online. But for a long time, I sat in that room. I had to bring all my kids with me. I had to take a day off of work. I had to sit in around there with all people coughing the germs in this closed room and no windows there, and so it's the same situation now when it comes to maternal health. It's being in that closed room, you in there, and you just kind of like, when am I going to be next? And when they call you, they say a couple of words, you still don't understand, you're confused. That's how the insurance companies are doing things. We have transportation issues. We have the food deserts on the Missouri side. Transportation does not come to the suburbs where they assume everyone is well off, which they are not. Some people just may able have that little extra income because they work 70 hours a week to move outside of Kansas City area, but now they are not getting any assistance. They are pretty much being scorned to some degree. So when you go in and you look at, as a community health worker, when I go in and I look at my agencies, my organizations, who can help this family, they have zip codes that they're locked into due to the grant dollars. So they can't help these people. Mass transportation does not come out to the suburbs. You can do Uber, you can do Lyft, but when you're charging like $50 to and from the hospital every visit every week, these families can't afford it. It's becoming a thing where insurance companies like, we'll give them transportation. It's in the fine print. The fine print is so deep on the website that you're having to dig. They're not uplifting these services on purpose, but they are sitting on lots and lots of money. So I would say essentially what is working is basically the doulas have to go in. We have to pretty much advocate to the point where we are walking that fine line of being kicked out of the hospital, just to make sure that our clients are getting the services they need. They're getting the respect and the birth space that they deserve, and they're being treated like humans and not animals. I've had clients where they went in and they put them to sleep for a C-section without even getting permission to do so or any kind of paperwork signed. And so it's those things where it's like, it's unseen, unheard, but you have clients who don't want to speak out because they're so traumatized that they don't want to retell the story. And you have to respect that on their end too, and on their spectrum. So I think a harder part too is getting the clients to step forward and say, I was treated badly at this hospital, and owning that, instead of kind of like, I just want to put it behind me, because it doesn't help the next people to understand, the next family to know, like, they will actually do this because no one has said it. So now it's hearsay, and doulas can say it, but they're like, who's the family attached to this story? We don't know if you're making this up or not. And that family's like, I don't want to revisit it. So we're caught into kind of a rock and a hard place when it comes to that, because we need their stories to really come to the forefront to be able to make the difference, so that when you're going and doing policy, meetings and all the things that the politicians are seeing that person who went through the struggle and not someone telling their story, it's not as effective. And I think what is working is us having our one birth center. We have our low risk pregnancies. They're not allowed to do breech. They're not allowed to do twins at that birth center. They're also walking a fine line from being shut down because malpractice insurance companies now in Missouri, on the Kansas side, are trying to pull away that coverage. So if they don't have malpractice coverage, they can't practice. And with that, we have that going, and then adding that birth center under insurance policies so that that is an option so that they can have at least some type of midwife. Home births is another thing. I get it. Those are really unrestricted. And so it's kind of harder for people to do that without paying out of pocket. My last birth, I had to pay out of pocket for my home birth midwives. And then I was able to get a deductible after being the squeaky wheel with my insurance company. I was able to get it to apply towards my deductible. But at the end, it's still pretty expensive. People can't afford $3,000 to $6,000 for a home midwife here. And you have one practicing out of Kansas who is a Black midwife. She is the only one in that area that is practicing right now. And she's pretty much getting funding that's donated. She refuses to go through any other methods because she doesn't want anyone to tell her how to do her job. Mm-hmm. So she is our only one. We have maybe two on the Missouri side. So Black midwives are very hard to find for home birth. And I've heard, I don't know, because I've not been through the process, that it is very difficult. It's made a lot more difficult also for OB nurses in hospitals to get to get all they need to practice as well. So the majority of our birthing and maternal nurses here are white. And so when you're going into a hospital where no one looks like you, that automatically makes a difference too in having that whole spiritual aspect of your birth, because it's not quite the same when you don't have cultural congruence with your birth. Right. Even speaking on the Latina side of that too, as well. But that's my whole spiel. I've only been practicing 4 years. So I have not been a doula very long.
You come with a wealth of knowledge, though, and I think that, we sometimes attach years and, how long you've been doing it, not to take away from people that have been doing it for decades, but I really do appreciate what you brought to the table, and that is kind of what we're facing in Connecticut as well. And my concern, because I do believe that, implementation and accountability must be placed within the context of policy. So whoever told you that policy can't be undone or it's hard or whatever, that's an absolute lie. It's called an amendment. We try to get things done and they tell us, well, we'll do this and we'll go back next year and we'll do this. They want to slow walk us, right? But when it's time for them to get their things done, there's this sense of urgency. It happens, it's done right. So my argument has always been, with things that impact the disenfranchised, the marginalized, the people that look like us, is where's that sense of urgency when it comes to our issues? And where's that sense of not just getting it done, but getting it done right when it comes to our issues? And my fear, and this is why I've kind of immersed myself in this, and I'm having the conversations with, women that are doing the work like yourselves, because I don't want this to be what happened to us when we got emancipated and they took all the Black women out of the schools and out of the classrooms and created these certifications and placed the bar just high enough to keep us from achieving, right, the outcome we would need to get back into the classroom with our babies. So now we have a lot of talk around policies to do with minority teacher recruitment. We need to get more Black males in the classroom. We need more teachers that look like the students in the room, and it is cultural diversity. It is, being able to relate on ethnic backgrounds and things of that nature. And that's my fear, right? I'm watching this happen with the maternal health. And I'm like, okay, they know that we're onto it. They know that we know what the solutions are. They hear us talking. They know about these conversations. And the solution is culturally, right? Community-based doula care, community-based midwifery. It is important because what we do is natural. We've been doing it for centuries. It was said earlier when we started this conversation. And what we did was we took what was natural and made it a natural process and made it a medical process. And we also had the reins taken by white males, who dominate this society. And, I think that's why the whole question around genetics is so, I don't even have a word. I don't even want to say offensive, because it's even more than that, it's genetic, when we know we were good for breeding as long as they could use us the way they needed to use us. And now, we're not needed in that capacity. They can't use us in that capacity. So now they're trying to they have figured out ways to make it where, we're not birthing in the ways that we should be birthing. Care is much better given when it's coming from people that look like us. And when I was giving my testimony, the representative actually, when I talked about the fact that I was the first generation, me and my siblings, to be born in hospitals, my mom, my grandmother, their sibling, all born at home. Most of them were born at their grandmother's house. My mom was born at Grandma Flaxie's, right? Like, that's where her and her siblings came into the world. Now I guess we all could say that, like she was saying, well, white women were doing the same thing. You're right. But we all looked like who we looked like, right? The white community was taking care of their white mothers. The Black communities were taking care of their Black mothers, and et cetera. So I think that's where the rubber meets the road, and we got to make sure that we're creating policies that really do address the needs and bridge the gaps. And nobody knows what that is but us. And I'm not saying that, a Black woman can't have a white doula. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. But there has to be a level of compassion and conviction and dedication. Black mothers have to matter. If you're going to be a doula to a Black mother, she has to matter to you. That baby has to matter to you, and if that's the case, I'm good with that. But I've seen, and I've been in situations myself with these hospitals where we go in and it is explicit bias. You see it right off the rip. You know what it is. Mm-hmm. You feel it before they even say it. Mm-hmm. And then they have the audacity to say it. So, we're put in very compromised positions, and Black women are hiring doulas because they want to make sure they come out alive. That was the other thing I had to tell her during the testimony. Like, Black women are looking for doulas because they understand that their lives and their babies' lives are at stake. And there's a baseline of 60 to 100% preventable when we talk about our deaths and our morbidities. It is preventable. There's no reason why women should be dying. Serena Williams, great story. Sad story, but great story when we want to really hone in and make it real for people. This has nothing to do with education. Black women are degreed. We are the highest degree right now in the country. Currently, Black women are the highest degree. We're getting the most degrees right now. We are the most educated people right now in society, and we're dying.
Absolutely. So I want to, definitely thank you for all of these points. And I want to honor everyone's time that we're here. We're coming up on the hour. There's been some really great points made in the chat. And Gianna, I see that your hand is raised. So I just want to give everyone kind of an opportunity for some closing remarks. If there are any questions, Representative Porter, definitely feel free to ask them. Gianna, I want you to go first, but if you could also speak to what you mentioned around trauma and education as having to be a part of any solutions that we come to. I think we're all in agreement that this is a spiritual experience. Regardless of what your religious ideologies are, to bring life in the world, the foundation of this is spirit. So how do we address that in the policies and how we go about forming solution? That's kind of what came up for me. So Gianna, please, I know you all have a lot going on today, but if you all could just, give us some final thoughts and we'll wrap it up.
So this has been amazing. A little background about me. Most of the elder women in my family were midwives. I was about 10 years old before I realized babies could be born in a hospital. So I came to traditional midwifery from that. I was 4 years old, running down the road to help my grandmother deliver a baby. So for me, this is in my blood. And I have the education pieces in place, but I look at it from more of a, this is what I do. This is in my blood. To address the word offensive when it comes to, is this genetic? I think adding the word dangerous. It is dangerous to assume that this is genetic. This is how this is happening to us. The other part of legislation I think is important. Now, here in Pittsburgh, it wasn't without a fight that we got these things implemented. It's because our Black community bashed the hospitals, and they were kind of like, oh no, we don't want this, you know, so this is how this happened. I've been a doula for over 20 years. I'm at birth number 919. Right now I'm taking a break just to take care of myself and my twins. I had a very traumatic birth, so I'm taking a break to deal with that. But part of our legislation has to be, and I don't know how, I'm not a policy person, that the grant dollars need to go to us. Now, we have an oversight person, Dr. Dara Mendez here, who's watching where this grant money is going. And she's like, too many white people right here, too many white faces in Black spaces right here. We got to move this money over here. That's another thing. Our money, the money has to go to us. White people can't tell us. They don't know. They can't tell us. And that's one of the problems. I think when it comes to trauma, when we're looking at things like breastfeeding and traumatic birth, the hospitals will produce trauma, but there's no one to address it. I'm a birth trauma counselor as well. There's no one to address the trauma for us. We, in my practice, outside of the hospital, I have my own practice. In my practice, we have incorporated Reiki. And the reason we did that was to take off the trauma bonds of the mothers and then take it off of the baby, so our babies are born whole. Our babies aren't born whole. Our babies aren't born whole in the hospital. That's not happening with us. So we need to educate. We also need to understand that most of our mothers have been traumatized. So when we walk into the birth space with one of our mothers, 9 times out of 10, they have been traumatized in some way. When we look at breastfeeding, if a mother says, I don't want to latch my baby, the first red thing that goes off in my head is, what kind of trauma has happened in that family? So we start to talk about the myths, the history of breastfeeding. What has happened that makes you, why don't you want to latch the baby? Let's talk about that. And in my practice, we have a 100% breastfeeding rate. We have a 100% breastfeeding rate a year out still, as I'm looking at our moms a year out. And this is because we address it that way. Okay, so what have you, my twins' dad, when I told him I was breastfeeding, and my babies right now are getting my milk and donor milk in the, they haven't figured out suck, swallow, breathe. And I think it's just the trauma of them being born. They are now 36 weeks old, like gestationally. So they're trying to figure it out, but right now they're kind of, and they have natal teeth, which is, I think, causing some issues as well. But the first thing he said was, oh, you're not breastfeeding my sons. You're not breastfeeding my sons. What if they're going to be gay? Oh, they're going to be spoiled. And then his mother did the same. Oh, you're not breastfeeding my grandchildren. Oh, nobody's ever going to be able to touch them. Oh, no, they're going to be stuck to you. I don't want no, excuse my language, titty babies. And it took my mother to say to him, okay, let me talk to you about the history, because I was getting angry. Let's talk about the history of breastfeeding. My mother breastfed all of us. I breastfed all of my children exclusively. I was 16 when I realized people gave babies that stuff that smelled. So I said to my mother, what is that? I was with my mother in the WIC office and was like, what is that smell? And my mother used to help in the WIC office when she would help with breastfeeding. So these things were foreign to me. And so to hear him say he had never seen a baby breastfed, not in his family, not in his community, he had never seen it. So we have to address those things and implement the fathers if they're going to be involved, like Lady Holly said. If the fathers are going to be involved, we have 2 men, male doulas, and they also are Reiki masters. And I'm also training them for postpartum depression and perinatal depression. But they will talk to the men about breastfeeding and support and what does it look like, why you have to be present. These are Black children. You have to be present. So I think we need to get to a space where we know what the problem is. Now we have to educate. We have to teach our clients how to advocate. And then, like Janice says, there has to be someone in there that's unbiased. You know, we have a community advisory board that goes into the hospitals, and I have a very big mouth and I sit on that board. We're in the hospital, and even though I work for the hospital, they're just like, she's a home birth midwife too. We don't want no static with Gianna over here. But we go in and we're just like, this happened, this happened, this happened. We had a doctor here who was known, they called him Dr. Savage, and he was known for the husband stitch. He was known to abuse women, especially Black women. He was known, the hospital knew he was doing this. And the community just started blasting him. They're like, what do we do? What do you want? We want him fired. So what they did was allow him to retire, but not without a record. And this is what is important is, and we fought for this. We're in the hospital making noise, and they just don't want to hear our mouths anymore. And especially when it comes to me, I bring a lot of money to that hospital because that birth circle program implemented to the hospital, when it went from the community to the hospital, I made sure it stayed community based. So that's my baby. So I quit and they begged me to come back. So when I came back, I redesigned my job to be more community based. And so this is how it happens. We have to have big mouths. We have to, and I know that some of us are going to be eliminated along the way just because of the way the hospital works. The way, and I was willing to be one of those people, kind of, because when they said to me, you take the COVID shot, or I'm like, bye. Guess who does not have a COVID shot working up in that hospital? I don't. And so, and so when we look at things like, I mean, I'm all over the place because again, I'm NICU brain and I'm tired. But education, we need to educate our families, the whole entire family. Like Lady Holly was saying, it's the whole family, because when you get mama and grandmama up in that hospital making noise, then the hospitals start to listen. And so, yeah, it is a fight. And again, some of us will be collateral damage. I myself, I'm okay being collateral damage as long as our mothers stop dying. And, but yeah, this has been 100%. I love this. Thank you for inviting me to this conversation. And so, yes, thank you.
Appreciate you, Gianna. Yes, and I did not realize that I thought you said you like caught twins. You had twins.
Yes, I am 47 years old. So when the doctor said I had an IUD, so when the doctor said you're pregnant with twins, I said, you are in the wrong. Nope. I told the technician, you're in the wrong vagina. Move over to someone down. Who are you talking to? Who are you talking? I literally, she said, Gianna, listen to me. And I was just like, I don't know, honey. And I know her. And I was just like, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. I took the ultrasound.
Gianna, you about to make me go get an IUD.
What does that mean? Baby A and B.
You are gonna make me go get one, because the goat mouth, I called her my elder in my church, came up out. I was singing. She came up out the seat, came and touched my womb and said, "You can be." I said, "The devil's a liar." She said, she said, you haven't read your good book. Look at how many women over the age of 50 had babies in the Bible. I was like, no. You just made me
and multiples. The older you are,
I already had twins. I'm not trying to three-peat. I'm not messing with you.
Wow.
But you know, in our families, we are notorious in the Black families for, my mother calls them 2 sets of children, and they're notorious in my family. Everybody thinks they're done. I clowned my sister so much about having babies in her 40s. I laughed. The baby before these ones is 18 years old. I laughed at my sister, everything. My sister thinks this is the funniest thing she's ever heard.
I'm not messing with you. This is how that magical stuff happens when more than 2 is gathered. No, you don't. Hex on it. I'm not doing it with you today.
So I greatly appreciate you making time for this. This is, you are phenomenal. But thank you so much. And Lady Holly, since you are off mute, please, can you give us some of your closing remarks?
My closing remarks are, when more than 2 educated spiritually bound, passionate Black people are together, we can absolutely do the work that I have subscribed to do. I took a stint in city government so I could see how this works. So now I've done the NGO side. Now I know the city government and the policy side. What you have in me, I'll be collateral damage because I got a big mouth. And if I'm not going to impact the world, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do it. It's not, my calling is too big. There's a fire that burns inside of me, which is why I can't be pregnant with nobody's twin. So, because it would be just my luck, and again, I feel like I'm birthing ideas. And so for all of the policy that you need to write, I am your doula, call on me, like for real. I'm a servant leader. I take no victory in doing this alone. We never did anything as a people alone. That's not how we roll. And when we can absolutely give back the knowledge and education to these young people who are, they're looking at the glass from a different set of people's glasses. And I don't understand it because this is a light body system. You have to do different things to this body and our skin, and wonder why the baby got eczema, and why did it, and all the issues that we have. And then we don't understand that it's within this body, within our lineage, that all the secrets are there. And so I applaud us for being able to be here. And he said, you know the deal. I love you, the highest heart and profound gratitude for the connections, because sometimes it is not about you having it's about who do I know to call. Warren Buffett is famous. He doesn't really have a lot of smarts. He said, I'm just smart at going, who do I need to call to put in the room to make it happen? And then how do I give you money to invest? That's how he's made his money. He doesn't do anything miraculous. He is a connector by trade. So trust and believe. I am on my platform. I literally just incorporated Alien Bruja because I got to take these kids are in the metaverse. I got to get them woke from the AI. If all you're doing is touching this thing and this thing, these things are smart, but the people operating them sometimes are not very smart. And so I'm here for it. I love a good scrappy fight. You know, I got a wife beater on at all times. I will take these earrings out, put some shea butter on, and be right with you. And we have to. It's imperative that we have to as womb holders. So I appreciate all of my sisters in this space. I can't tarry. So I was like I'm holding on. I keep getting texts. I'm like we're wrapping up. So I appreciate your commitment to time, and I appreciate you all. And if you need me, holla.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you all making time and just the energy you bring into this space. So yes, we are divinely appointed to be here in this moment, and I'm gratitude filled for all of this. So Janice, if you could please, just give your closing remarks. Thank you.
Well, piggybacking on everything that the wise one said here, you are greatly appreciated, especially doing all the things that you do in areas that you all serve. So it's just wonderful. It's beautiful to see. And closing, I would like to piggyback on bringing the fathers to the table. I mean, we gotta get them out there. There's programs developing, and it might be. I know there was a daddy group out of Philadelphia that came to one of the Kappa conferences, and they were all Black men, and they just pretty much talked about how they doula the dads. And so I was like, give me some information. We are baby stepping out here. We're trying to build. My husband's been taking a part in all the action too. So he's trying to build some groups and get the men talking. But yeah, we're not in 1940. So it's we got to get the men in the room, physically, mentally, emotionally, get them involved, whether it's their wife, whether it's their girlfriend, whether it's their friends, women, and wife or whatever. They need to be, have that voice put into. So I would just like to say, I love what you're doing, Representative Porter, and that, I'm hoping it goes far out there and it'll just eventually span across the globe to all the other states. I'm going to try my best. I've been trying for the last 4 years to get the other doulas on board we kind of just need to get together and group up, and then that's the way we're going to make a difference. But right now, the funding is so scarce that people are just grabbing what they can in their little sectors, and So no one really is, everyone's on the is boots on the ground. So no one is really like able to kind of facilitate and get the thing going, but hopefully soon, hopefully soon. But I appreciate being invited onto this call. But that's it for me.
Gratitude. I appreciate you accepting the invitation. Y'all don't know how impactful this is. So I definitely want to leave space for Representative Porter to just kind of share any final thoughts. We do have everyone's information. This is definitely not the last conversation. There is so much to be done.
No,
So
this
much
is
more
just
to
the
cover.
beginning. Amen. First, just really, really grateful, very humbled, and very honored to be in the presence of you all. I can't even begin to tell you, oh man, what it means, the work that you're doing, what it means to me as a Black woman, as a Black mother, as a Black grandmother, my auntie or sister. We talk about the dads. The first thing that popped in my head was, be there for your daughters, because you weren't there for, you know, well, maybe you weren't there, when your children were born, but surely they're here now. And if you have daughters, my thing to the brothers is being able to support them in ways that they weren't able to support their moms. It's never too late. The power of the doulas for me, the lesson that I'm learning and all that I've researched and all that I've learned here today with this time with you all is that it is about advocacy. And I can tell you, whenever we go into the hospital for birth or anything else, it is very critical. I've seen it. My uncle had a really bad stroke, and if my mom wasn't in a position to be there day and night with him and advocate for him and be with him at the nursing home and, demand that she stay because he wasn't being cared for properly, advocacy goes a long way when it comes to Black people. And I think that's the first thing we're having to deal with, and creating spaces where people can be vulnerable and honest enough to state that the root cause of all of this is race. It's not race. It is racism. It is the race is a structure that was designed to keep us on the bottom. And I think part of the frustration for me in doing the policy work is that, I continually tell our people, we can't keep looking to a system that was designed to devour us, to deliver us. It's delusional. It's delusional. Like you said, Sister Lady Holly, like everything we need is on the inside of us. We're born with it. We come here. We're able to heal ourselves. And that's the other part of this that, we don't discuss. What's done naturally can be healed. What's done medically will be treated. And there's a difference between healing and treating. And doctors are here to treat. When I look at Western medicine, the one thing that I've learned in delving a little deep into that research and where that stems from, right? Europe, two solutions: medicine, which is the pharmaceutical industry, or surgery, right? And it's all interlocked. And the people that are getting paid at the cost of us, the cost of our health, our well-being, our livelihood, our families, our bodies, our minds, our spirits. So teamwork makes the dream work. That's the other thing that I think about when I look at this panel of queens this morning. Like teamwork, this is a dream team. And I look forward to us, moving forward together and working to make sure that, not just Connecticut is getting it right, but we're amplifying this in a way that is national, that we are touching women. I'm looking at, New York, Missouri, Kansas. Gianna, where are you?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, Connecticut. Right here on this call alone, we got a pretty good representation of what's happening and what needs to be done. So I believe that we just need to keep these conversations going. Education is the key. We often say that knowledge is power, but I push back on that. I say the application of knowledge is power. You can know what you know. You ain't doing nothing with it. You ain't sharing it with nobody. You're not teaching nobody how to use those tools in the chest. It's a moot point. So thank you so much. I mean, Hafiza, I'm just really, really grateful for the connection. It was so natural. I mean, when I met her, it was like I was meeting an old girlfriend. Just kindred spirits immediately. And that is what I feel on this call as well. And I know that is what we have expansively if we just get out here and we dare to make these connections. We dare to talk to one another and love one another, care for one another, get back to the basics. back to being a village. You know, we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. How about it takes a village to birth a child? That's what we're talking about. So
I
thank
say,
you.
oh.
Yes, and I'm gonna stop because I think we all could go on because we're passionate about what we do and labors of love, how apropos. Like, I mean, it truly is a labor of love, and I just thank you all so very much.
Whew. Thank you all. I'm full, and I know I'm
Yeah.
motivated. There is so much work to be done. But again, just like you said, just gratitude filled that I'm in spaces with, just these divine beings who are willing and ready
Amen.
to do this work. So this will not be the first or the last that we will
Yes.
be having, coming together. And again, we have contact information. And we will definitely be in touch. So I appreciate you all making time. We almost 2 hours in, and I know this is valuable and precious. So
Amen.
thank you.
But
Thank
you know
you.
what? We got to make time for the things that are
Yeah.
important. That's the lesson in all of this. And I'm hoping that we can actually make this a scheduled thing. I don't know, monthly, bi-weekly, I don't know. But I would love for us to be able to do this on a scheduled routine, like just really check in and walk through what's
Support.
going on here in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And you and I, and Gianna, because you have policy experience, Lady Holly, I'm definitely going to be in contact with you all as we move forward through the session. And it's moving pretty quick, that we just kind of glean you guys for the wisdom and make sure that we're imparting that wisdom with the other policymakers at the table.
All right.
Awesome.
Peace and
Bye.
blessings.